Hello and welcome to Nelson Oliver Cards. My name is Nelson and today we're going to be doing a review of the newest aspect of Marvel Champions, the pool aspect. So I feel like I've tried enough of it to finally talk about it. It's been out for a while, but I wanted to try and sink my teeth into it and finally talk about it. Now, during the last podcast, the Shadow of the Cast episode, Villain and I were talking, I actually don't remember if it got into the podcast or not, but we were talking about some of the upcoming stuff that we were going to be doing, and we both had a pool review or deep dive on our list. And so Villain actually posted a video yesterday, his pool deep dive, and this video is meant to complement that video. So this is an overview and a review video, whereas that is a deep dive analysis of all of the cards. Now I have linked that video down below, so if that's what you're looking for, that's probably going to be a very good resource for you. Now this is going to be an overview. We're going to talk about some of the archetypes. I'm going to give my thoughts and review around the pool, and I will talk about a lot of the cards, but I'm not going to go into a deep dive on each one of the cards like he did in that video. But if there is a specific card that you want to know more about, you can let me know in the comments and I will make a short chatting about it. So let's have some fun with that. So if you want to know more about the bomb or whatever, ask about it and we'll talk about that specific card. Now, we're going to talk about a few of the ways to play pool. We're going to talk about two heroes and each of those kind of archetypes that I think is going to be fun to run it. I'm also going to include some deck lists in the comments, so if you want to try it out, please use those decks or modify those decks to do so. Now, I see pool with three main archetypes. The first one we're going to talk about, I'm just calling it the bad icons. There's probably a better name for it out there, but it's the bad icons and then all of the benefits that you can get from them. The second one that we're going to be discussing is the meta games and using them and like mulligan and that kind of strategy. And then finally is the big money with keeping your health up to maximum to utilize the self X cards like self-preservation to get just high impact cards on the table. These branches, but this is how we're going to break up and talk about it. So let's talk about the bad icons first. Now, there's a lot of cards that synergize the bad icons that pool can put into play. So bad icons, I mean like Amplify, Crisis, Hazard, and Acceleration. And the cards that synergize with that are like I Got This, which has a different effect based on which icons are out there. So the overall idea is to put these icons out using maybe your allies, or we'll talk about some other ways to do that, and then utilize those icons almost as like resources or triggers to help get better stuff. One of the other cards is Barely a Scratch, which is a defense event that prevents damage based on the number of icons. So rather than having a specific icon out there where you're like removing threat based on if you have specific icons with I Got This, this one you just want to have a plethora of icons out there, which also combos really well with one of the coolest cards in the pool new aspect, which is Laser Swords, aka the Lightsabers, which buff your attack stat based on the number of bad icons out there, up to like a +4. So it's really fun. It's a fun idea. I don't know if it's necessarily for me, but it's a really fun idea to utilize bad icons that are going to negatively impact your interaction with the game in order to buff yourself. I think that's an interesting design space, and there's a lot of really cool synergies. I talked about the allies a little bit earlier, but we'll revisit the allies right now, where each of the allies in the pink aspect have a icon on them, either an Amplify, Hazard, Crisis, whatever, but the trade-off there is that they don't take consequential damage whenever they activate. So if you have like Headpool out there, there's an Amplify on Headpool, however, no consequential damage, and Headpool has a really cool effect where you can make enemies attack each other. So it's a really powerful ally, but you're trading off with that Amplify, and making that and choosing that balance could be kind of tough. There's cards like Ambush or Distraction that put those icons on the table. They're shut down like Thwarting with their Crisis icon, but also shut down minions while right at it. And then my favorite card that probably came in the pack is Live Dangerously, which is the new player side scheme, which has you do just that. You live dangerously. It has one of every single icon on it, but it also gives every character +2 hand size. So How much do you value your hand size versus these bad icons? Now, the idea of trading those bad icons with like a benefit is fun, especially when you can utilize a hero that exploits that even further or can skirt it. So we're going to give an example of both. The first hero that I'm going to recommend playing in this archetype is Quicksilver. Quicksilver with laser swords is so much fun. I just actually posted a video last week that went and exploited this. Quicksilver gets to ready because you get up to +4 attack with your laser swords. Now Quicksilver, every time he's attacking, he's doing 5-6 damage, and then you run like stick-to-itiveness, which can be fueled with his friction resistance card, where you spend a physical resource to ready Quicksilver, and then that readies friction resistance, and you get to swing for 5, 6, 7 again. Quicksilver with laser swords is so much fun. It is a absolute blast. So that's a fun way to do it. It works in solo, but as we'll talk about in the overall thoughts, a lot of these pool archetypes and pool styles of play work much better in multiplayer. The skirting the bad icon hero that I'm going to suggest here is Kitty Pryde. So since she can ignore her crisis icons when she's in her phased form, you can run some of the scarier cards out there, and you can run the crisis icons, shut down minions, but also still thwart because you can skirt around. And then maybe even remove some extra threat with her intangible interference upgrade. So this is a fun way to throw all the crisis icons out there, and then just your hero is able to skirt around it. Again, these deck lists are going to be down below if you wanted to try them out. The next kind of archetype or style of play that we're going to be discussing for the pool aspect is the metagames, which are the sinks with mulligan. So this is my favorite way to play pool. Ever since I started talking with Villain about resource sinks, I've realized that I really kind of enjoy that style of play in Marvel Champions. I like the idea of utilizing resource sinks, so to give us an extra option where you're not playing a card with your resources, instead you're sinking them into another card for a benefit. So Plan B is kind of a really iconic example of this, where you can exhaust, discard a card, deal 2 damage. So instead of spinning that card, you're tossing it for 2 damage. Nice. With pool, we got a lot of these meta games, which are all sinks, like tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe, you can move damage from a character by spending a specific type of resource, and then whenever you get 3 in a row on your little tic-tac-toe board, you discard it and deal 3 damage. And you can heal your allies with this, and so use this to heal your allies to keep them out and make sure that they do not get knocked off by consequential damage, maybe get an extra activation before they jump for you. This is awesome. I like to try and maximize this card, so I'm putting the damage in like the corners and trying not to get 3 in a row so that I can get the most healing before I deal damage. Another example would be like rock, paper, scissors, which lets you reveal a card or show a card in your hand and discard the top card of your deck. And then there's a little diagram, and if the card that you chose in your hand beats the card that's discarded, then you actually get to draw that card. And so it's a little bit of a card draw with some risk in it. Now, like Domino can really set this up. This is not who I'm going to suggest for the game or for the heroes, but it's just kind of a fun comic. Domino can manipulate that top card to pretty much always make sure you're drawing. But this whole kind of idea wraps around in my head with Mulligan. Mulligan is a 3-cost event that you cannot play if you've already played a card this phase. What you do is 3 costs, you draw up to your hand size. It is really fun if you flip, especially if you flip from like a 4 hand size hero to a 6 hand size alter ego. You can flip down and you can draw up to your hand size and get a couple extra cards. Or what I like to do, because you can only play it if you haven't played a card, you can still sink your resources and then draw up. So if you have a couple of cards in your hand, you can toss them into your tic-tac-toes, your metagames, all of those, and then you can play Mulligan, draw back up to your hand size, and be off to the races. The other way that I've utilized Mulligan is if we really just want to mulligan hard for a specific card in our deck. So if there's a key piece to the deck that you need to get out early, you can play Mulligan to rush through the deck very, very quickly in order to find Ant-Man's helmet or whatever you are looking for in your deck. I really like Mulligan. This is my favorite way. This is my favorite card in the pool aspect. The 2 heroes that I'm going to suggest you try out with this type of strategy in the pool aspect is Star-Lord, because Star-Lord already has some resource sinks with his element guns, but then you can play What Can Go Wrong, discount a card cost by 3, Mulligan costs 3, and then you can draw up to your hand size. If you have your helmet out, then you get the +1 to your hand size already. And so you can deplete your hand. You can throw these resources into element guns, all your metagames, whatever you want. Then use your What Can Go Wrong ability, draw right back up to your hand size, and then go off on the races again. It's a really fun, risky deck. I like Star-Lord a lot with with this mulligan strategy. The next one that we're going to talk about is Hulk. So I don't know how good this deck is. It's fun, but it's Hulk, and yeah. So you can use the meta games with Hulk to always have a sync for that last card or any cards that you would discard at the end of your turn regardless, using his like forced response or forced interrupt ability that states whenever you end your turn, you have to or whenever the player phase ends, you discard your hand. So you're not using those cards anyways. So Hulk already likes resource sinks, and these are just cool, interesting ways to utilize new resource sinks for Hulk. Also, Mulligan can help you get out of a tough spot, and then if you use like plot convenience, you can help save some of your stuff later to help you probably honestly pay for some stuff later, so you can exhaust plot convenience to store cards and then draw them back up. So Hulk is a fun try. Let me know how the Hulk pool goes. We'll see if you can have better success, but it's fun. It's fun. The last archetype that we're going to be talking about today is the big money archetype. This utilizes the Self-X, the Self-Preservation, Self-Control, and Self-Confidence cards, which are double resources if you have less than 5 sustained damage, aka you've taken less than 5 damage, or they are triple resources if you've not taken any damage. So this one is super fun to run with some of the higher cost allies, which we talked about in our first section, or even higher cost basic allies, or if we have a really expensive kit and a way to protect our health. So we can scale that cost curve up with some allies, basics, or heck, even like Pool Inspection or the Bomb, which kind of work a little bit better with that first archetype, but then you can pay for them with this archetype, so maybe there's some crossover there. But if you can protect your health, you can have a really high impact on the game. This archetype kind of also encompasses cards like Healing Factor, which is a 3-cost upgrade that makes you Wolverine basically. So you heal 2 at the start of the player phase. This healing can then put you back up to like full health to get your triples, or maybe get you over that threshold of 5 sustained damage to get doubles. Also, you can just kind of take damage if you're not running the Self-X cards. You can kind of take more damage and then just heal up over time. Plot Convenience is another card that we mentioned with Hulk here, but you can save cards. Either you can save one of these triples, or you can save a card that can't be paid for with triples if you want to save like the Bomb. Stick it under Plot Convenience, and then whenever you draw that triple, you have the ability to make those stars align for yourself. So that's kind of fun. The last card I'm going to talk about I don't think really fits in this archetype, but it's a fun card. It's called Get Good. Basically, it gives you Deadpool's ability where when you would be defeated, you flip the alter ego, set your hit point value to 1, and then yeah. But the funny thing is that if you lost your last game of Marvel Champions, this card cost nothing to play, and so you just get to play this card. It's a funny card. I wanted to mention it, but it's kind of the opposite of the big money strategy, but I didn't really know where else to put it in the video, so here we are. The 2 characters that I recommend playing here is Groot, because Groot can really protect his growth counters, or protect his health with his growth counters. And so a lot of the times I very rarely find myself taking damage with Groot. So we can use Groot, and Tic-Tac-Toe is another thing that I probably should have mentioned a little bit earlier, but Tic-Tac-Toe also can heal your identity to get you to that threshold so that you can hit those triples. Or just use those growth counters to soak damage, and then we can use those Self-X cards for for the triples. So Groot is really fun, and then the next hero that I'm going to talk about is Colossus, and shout out to Makander here. I hope I am saying that right, who showed me this idea just recently. But Colossus is all about having tough status cards, and tough means that you don't take damage, which means that you can run your triples pretty easily. You can also lean into the crisis cards here because his signature ally Shadowcat can script those crisis cards, and so you can kind of lean into that risky nature of pool a little bit because you have an answer in your kit. I thought that was a really cool idea, so I wanted to share it, but that is not my idea, that's Makander's. Before we start talking about like Dreadpool and my overall thoughts, I wanted to just talk about some of the events. There's a lot of really awesome events in the pool aspect that can fit into most of the archetypes previously mentioned. So if you're looking to build into any of these, I really like cards like Get Ragey, that allows you to like ready your allies and getting additional attack. Cut Upper, which brings stun to the table. Get in Front of Me, which can cancel treachery cards. These are all pretty good, and it can make it into almost any of those decks. And so a lot of the times when I'm running pool, I will put least one of these in that deck, just kind of depending on where that deck direction is going. But I wanted to just talk about them because they're very, very good cards. Let's talk about Dreadpool. Dreadpool is the price you pay for running Pool. Dreadpool comes in, and there's a treachery card called the Crisis of Infinite Deadpools, where you draw it. It's effectively another Shadow of the Past, where it brings in Dreadpool, which is a minion, a 2/2/3 minion, which whenever you kill him, you deal him as an encounter card to the person who defeated him. And then also Dreadful Deeds, that comes in with an amplify and scalable threat based on how many pink cards are controlled by players. Dreadpool isn't awful. Honestly, if you have, and I've run this combo before, if you have an aggression player that wants to take out minions and has like Hall of Heroes, Moment of Triumph, things that deal with minions, you kind of want him to come out, and it's kind of fun to build into Dreadpool, right? Like, you want him to come out, and then you have a consistent counter on Hall of Heroes every single turn. That's kind of fun. The worst thing about this, I think, is Pool's Eyes, which takes away an ally, and it's probably my least favorite of, or at least, no, I wouldn't say least favorite. I think it's a really interesting part of the mod set, but it's the part of the mod set that I am most scared of. That's a good way to put it. All in all, I think the risk of running Pool are more prevalent in the pink cards themselves than the Dreadpool mod set. So, yeah, you run the Crisis of Infinite Deadpools, but I have not had that be a huge impact on my game. Let's talk about my overall thoughts on Pool. I have found that a full-on Pool deck is a tough ask. I think that Pool is better with heroes who run a heavy basic package, and then you can splash Pool, add fewer Pool cards, and then run a lot of gray cards. Because with so many of the Pool cards, there's a risk factor to consider as a part of the cost to play them. So if we dump all of the pink cards into one deck, it can get overwhelming very quickly, especially in solo. Which brings me to my next point. Multiplayer. I think Pool gets a lot better in multiplayer. In solo, we want to try and minimize these bad icons or effects to an extreme. We do want to minimize them in multiplayer too, but let's just take an acceleration token as an example. One acceleration token in solo adds double the amount of threat, whereas in 4-player it only adds 25% extra threat because it's one extra threat. Same for hazards, so dealing out one additional encounter card versus, or one additional encounter card to one player is significantly worse than one additional encounter card to 4 players. Just percent-wise, you have more people to help deal with the problems that you're bringing to the table. So now we're looking at some of these cards, some of these allies who come in with huge impacts. They're easier to stomach when they're not adding too much negative impact percentage-wise to the game. And this is also much better because if you have a partner that can help mitigate the issues, like a Justice player who's bringing Crisis Averted and can skirt those Crisis icons, you can just make the game so much easier and you can have more fun with Pool. So I think Pool is a hard solo ask. It can absolutely be done, but I think Pool's stock gets higher and higher the more players you have in the game, because there is a lot of risk in running Pool. And learning how much of that risk to run, and that can be a challenging thing to do. I have a really tough time with that. I either go way too far and just risk it all and lose, or I don't put enough Pool and I don't feel like I get the Pool experience with it. I think Pool can be really interesting, but outside of specific decks and interactions, it's not really my style of play. I'm happy that it's in the game because I know a lot of people out there like it, but Pool's not really for me. So yeah, I don't think I really like Pool. Last thing I will say about Pool, ironically, I think Deadpool is really bad at Pool. Deadpool has so much chaos, and when you combine that with the chaos of Pool, I feel like that's too much chaos. So I think Deadpool is actually pretty bad at Pool. I do like the idea of these one-off aspects. I do hope that we see some more of them in the future, because I think that it's a fun way to kind of explore the game design. And so I'm excited to see some more of them. And if we ever get more Pool support, I would be down for that. I would absolutely be down for that. Saying that I don't like Pool, it's still a good thing because I'm still playing Marvel Champions. I'm still having a good time, but relatively, Pool's not for me. What are your thoughts on Pool? Do you like running Pool? Are you that risk taker at the table? Are you the one that you throw down that pink deck and everyone kind of groans at the table, but you're like, yeah, let's do it? Let me know down in the comments what you think about this new aspect, and I will talk to you all very soon. Peace.